Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Grab yourself a cup of tea and let's talk some boxing. Now, Eddie Hearn has stated that it's not 100% going to be Oleksandr Usyk next for Anthony Joshua. It's most likely, but there are other options that they can explore, like going to America and perhaps fighting Ruiz for a third time, or Luis Ortiz. So there are options for AJ, but it does seem like it will be Usyk. Now, apparently Andy Ruiz Jr. has already DM'd Eddie Hearn to ask him for the third fight because he says he's ready to do it in America. Now, I do believe it will be Usyk because I think that Anthony Joshua is not going to want to give up one of his world titles, but given what has happened with Tyson Fury, he's looking at his options and he will go through who is his best option. Does he want to lose a world title without fighting for it in the ring? That's what makes me believe it will be Oleksandr instead of Andy Ruiz or Luis Ortiz. The Luis Ortiz fight would be a good one. I think the best out of all of them will be Usyk because I think that it's just something different. The Ruiz fight, the third one, that might happen down the line at some point, but at the moment I don't think it's time for it. There will be a time for that fight when it is relevant, when Andy Ruiz Jr. keeps winning and when Anthony Joshua keeps winning. As long as that happens, I believe there is definitely a possibility we could see a third fight. Just at the moment, I don't see it happening. I see Anthony Joshua facing Usyk instead. And that's down to him being his mandatory. That's down to also him being the best choice out of those three. I mean, if it was you, who would you choose? Usyk, Andy Ruiz, or Luis Ortiz for AJ to face? We're all going to pick Usyk, and that is who his mandatory is. So, in light of that, you would have to think that that is the direction they will go in. Of course, they are going to explore their options, and if there isn't a deal to be done that pleases Anthony Joshua and his team, they might go their separate ways. But Eddie Hearn did also state in that interview with IFL, which I will link in the description below, that they believe they will reach a deal and something will be sorted out very soon. They could go to Cardiff, they could go to Wembley, or even Spurs' new stadium. So what about the deal between AJ and Usyk? Well, apparently it will be 80-20 favouring Anthony Joshua, the champion, if it goes to purse bids. If they make a deal in the meantime, things will be different. I would imagine it will be closer to 70-30, and they will likely have a rematch clause put in place as well, because Usyk isn't necessarily going to want to put a rematch clause in there unless he is financially benefiting from it. So that is kind of the motivation for them doing a deal in the meantime, is that for AJ and his team, more his team. I don't think Anthony Joshua is someone who really worries about rematch clauses. That's for his team and Eddie Hearn to worry about. I mean, thank God he had that against Ruiz, and the same for Dillian Whyte when he fought Alexander Povetkin. It wasn't Dillian Whyte who was too worried about the rematch clause. It was Eddie Hearn and the team around him looking after him to ensure if the unthinkable did happen, which it did, then they are covered and they get a rematch with that opponent once again, because sometimes it can be very difficult to get that guy back in the ring again. So in light of that, it was important then, and it will be important in the Usyk fight, for AJ to have a rematch clause, not for AJ, but down to Eddie Hearn and his team. They will make sure that that is in there. So when he talks about a deal that needs to be done, that will be sorted within the next couple of days. I mean, they said 10 days at the start of the week. So time is ticking away. They have to make a decision on who they are fighting. Now, in that interview, Eddie Hearn did also go into depth about the AJ versus Fury deal and what actually happened behind the scenes. He said that Bob Arum just called him and said, yeah, it's unfortunate and I don't know how that happened, but we're going to fight Wilder. And there is no plan to try and get him to step aside. There is no plan to even go to Saudi and try and put some money together to give Wilder some step aside in order to save Undisputed. So it did seem like they were almost running a promotion for Fury versus Wilder, and that was happening while they were doing negotiations for Undisputed. That kind of seems to be the way they have spun it, and you have to wonder about that, because as soon as Tyson Fury knew he was going to be fighting Deontay Wilder, he signed, he was excited, he was saying all of these things, so many things about what he's going to do. He even said about Anthony Joshua again. I mean, I don't know how he can talk about Anthony Joshua when he's not fighting him, and this Undisputed fight has just gone away, and he's fighting Wilder now. He still said he's going to fight Wilder, then demolish Joshua in an ESPN interview. So they were doing a promotion for Wilder versus Fury. I believe anyway, because they had a date, or at least they were projecting a date in July, maybe August, for Wilder Fury 3. The arbitration was on Monday, Wilder signed on Wednesday, Tyson Fury signed on Saturday for this third fight. So can they get a contract together that quickly? Can they get things sorted that quickly? Wouldn't we wish that that could happen for Undisputed? Imagine that. 2 or 3 days, Undisputed is happening. Well, 2 or 3 days, and Wilder versus Fury 3 is happening. That's very strange. It's taken them some time to put this together, and I do believe that they always had an intention of fighting Wilder again. Because when you look back over it, you can see that no one really seems to be that positive or confident about Undisputed. Everyone on Tyson Fury's team was negative. It's not going to happen in this current climate. We might have to fight Wilder again. Because at one point Fury said he'd never fight Wilder again. But then when he said that things looked a bit shaky with Undisputed because of the current climate, they could not get the money together or somewhere to stage the fight at the moment, he said, well, maybe I just fight Wilder again. And then, lo and behold, a few months down the line, he's fighting Wilder again. But after Eddie Hearn had secured all of the things that they were worried about, and it was an arbitration that meant Fury still had to fight Wilder. And Eddie Hearn explained that they were almost relying on him not being able to bring the goods to the table for Undisputed, so they would have the promotion of a potential AJ versus Fury fight, but then it would fall apart, and they could go straight into Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 3, and the promotion and the hype would be a lot bigger because everyone was talking about Tyson Fury. It was alongside Anthony Joshua's name, but the hope was that he could maintain that going into camp and going into the promotion for this trilogy fight. Eddie Hearn even said that they should have had the opportunity to terminate the contract back in December, which would mean no Wilder Fury 3. And they could make Undisputed. Eddie Hearn was guaranteed, apparently, that it would only be damages that Wilder would receive. We even knew that it was likely to be damages. Things haven't gone that way, and you have to wonder how much Tyson Fury's team knew about that. Did they know they were going to win, or did they know they were going to lose? Well, it doesn't seem like they're too cut up about Undisputed. I know that you kind of have to make lemonade and just move on, but still, you would be trying to make Undisputed some way. You'd be thinking about ways the fight can still happen, given the work that has gone into it, and how close the fight came. Something just doesn't sit right. I mean, Eddie Hearn said it, and I'm of the same belief. Something just doesn't feel right about this, about the fact that Eddie Hearn put 5 months of work into getting the fight done. He'd done it, and Tyson Fury said the fight is happening, but then about 48 hours later, he's fighting Deontay Wilder, and Undisputed has fallen apart. So you have to wonder, did they expect Eddie Hearn to not be able to do it? He'd done it, but then in one fell swoop, all of his hard work over the course of 5 months is undone, just in an instant. And Tyson Fury, his team, Bob Arum, don't even seem to care. I mean, they talk about December for a fight. I'm not thinking that that's going to happen, because I think that this was the best opportunity. And you have to wonder, if it didn't happen now, how can it happen at all? I know that there's going to be no arbitration in December, but still, there's going to be something, right? There's always going to be something. That seems to be the way with Undisputed. And no matter how hard Eddie Hearn works and his team, it still doesn't seem to come off. And that's not his fault. I mean, of course, you have to look at it on both sides. You have to see it from Fury's point of view and Anthony Joshua's point of view when doing this. You can't just look at some things here and there that Eddie Hearn has said, because obviously he's team Anthony Joshua, and you can't take it all from that. But it is hard to believe that Tyson Fury believed he was going to be fighting anyone other than Deontay Wilder. The facts are all there, and it is hard to ignore it. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Also leave a like and grab that subscribe button. Thanks guys.